What's going on, people? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown here, and this is the official post-fight reaction, man. You know what it is. Delighted to be joined by, you know who it is, the main man, Mr. Controversial, in the building. And you know what? We got another guest that we're going to bring in as well, man. A very special guest, someone that we had to bring in after the result last night. Here he is. The main man, Shane, is in the building. What's going on, Shane?
Bro, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say.
Just say
so
it in
happy
Russian.
I'm so happy to be here right now. That's what I'm saying. I'm so happy to be here.
Listen, guys, we've got a great show
What do you want to say before we go any further? No more payday.
Listen, guys, we've got a great show today, man. We're gonna got one sec, Shane. Got a great show today. Guys, you know the drill. You know how it works. For those of you joining, hit the like button on the way in. Leave your comments. We'll try and get through as much as we can. We've already got one comment here from my boy Harvey. He's put, "Evening, lads. Oh, Laurie, I'm looking forward to this one. Oh, yeah. You know what time it is. You know what time it is, Harvey. But listen, yeah, guys, on the way in, hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get straight into it. Listen, just I'll get my thoughts off first of all, because I know that I'm not gonna have too much of a say in here. So I just want to say salute to Dimitri Bivol, man. He did his thing. He literally won 9 rounds to 3 for me. 9 rounds to 3. Was brilliant behind that jab, and he was letting off the combinations. There was some suggestion that he may not, have a lot of output for this fight, but he was throwing punches in bunches. He was frustrating Canelo, and he did his thing, man. Great points win for Dimitri Bivol on Saturday night. I'm glad they didn't screw him over. It was looking like it could be the case with the way how them judges tried to score the rounds. But listen, the right man won. Dimitri Bivol was fantastic. Shane has been beating the drum for Dimitri Bivol for a long time. Laurie, I know what you were saying about Bivol before the fight. Plenty of people came into the chat yesterday asking where you were. They were like, "Where's Laurie? We want to talk to Laurie. Where is he? Is he going to admit defeat in this? Is he going to have a bit of humble pie?" So I'm waiting for, look, here we go. Mohammed, Laurie got this so wrong. Evening, guys. I bet you're happy, Laurie. San says here, scorecards after 4 rounds. Canelo was up by 4 on all three judges. I'm so glad the right man won. IB has said here, Laurie, it is absolutely clear that Canelo did not cherry pick. This was the hardest option, as Daryl and everyone was telling you. You need to put some respect and apologize for Canelo, please. So let's get straight into it, man. They're coming for you. I told you they'll come for you.
That last comment, I don't necessarily agree with. That last comment, I don't agree with. But go ahead.
Listen, Laurie, I'll let you talk.
First up, I want to say, right, congratulations to Dimitri Bivol. The man did his thing. I mean, I had questioned him before, not so much because of his talent. I think it's fair to say we all acknowledged that the man had the skills. Yeah. What I was doubtful of, was that he would have the right mindset to beat Canelo, because far too many of these guys, when they've come in and fought Canelo, they've been passive, right? And I must admit, when that first bell went and I saw him backing up, I thought to myself, oh no, here we go. But obviously that was short-lived, and he was obviously just downloading information and, processing what Canelo was bringing to the table. And then he soon took, after about, I thought, to be fair to Canelo, I think the first 3-4 rounds were fairly close, I would say. How the judges had Canelo 4 up. But then again, we do know what they're all about. But then after that, I think as soon as he realized that Canelo couldn't really hurt him, he won all the rounds. I mean, I gave Canelo 3 rounds at best. And I thought Bivol looked superb, really. He beat Canelo easily, let's be honest. He beat him easy. So I've got to give him credit for that. I've also got to say that I was incorrect in my assertion of the judges, although it would appear that they were trying to screw Bivol over, man. You know what I mean? Because with those cards of 115, 113, do you realize that if Canelo had, say, won that last round, he probably would have got a draw on the cards. So I wasn't really wrong in that aspect. But, and this is where I may disappoint the likes of Mohammed and 1 or 2 people, right, is that I still think it was a cherry, but it was a cherry that went wrong. And I said that, didn't I, Daryl? Be honest. I said that it's a cherry, but it's a cherry that could go wrong. And I stand by every word I say.
Don't you think the word cherry was a bit strong? Don't you think that word cherry was just a bit strong?
You're making it seem like it's an easy fight, bro.
Yeah, that word cherry is a bit strong for me.
Okay, yeah, you're right in that way. Yes, now that we've seen how the fight played out, people are going to say, "Oh, you said it was a cherry." But what I mean, cherry picking is basically a boxing term for people who navigate fights that they see as easier than other options they've been given. And I've said all along on this show, and I'm going to stand by my word, that Canelo Alvarez's career has been one of the most strategically managed careers in the history of boxing. And that is not to say that he's not a great fighter. I've always maintained that he's a great fighter, but I've always been perturbed by the way he went about his business, the serial ducking of fighters, not wanting to fight Charlo at 154, 160, not wanting to fight Benavidez.
Andrade.
Andrade, issuing glib statements about Andrade, calling him a horrible fighter, yet still you fought Avni Yildirim and people like that.
But here's a comment here from Stefan. Stefan says here, Bivol is a top 2 light heavyweight. They obviously picked him for a reason, though. I see where Laurie is coming from.
Yeah, and listen, I'm good, and this is where I'm going to admit to my wrongdoings, right? I'll be man enough to say I did underestimate Bivol. I underestimated mainly his mindset, not so much the skills. But I just wasn't convinced that he was going to go in there and really try and take the title off Canelo in a way that would give him the decision. I thought he was going to be a jab and grab merchant. And he proved me wrong in that regard, and I give him props for that. But
you've given everyone props. Where's my props? Where's my props?
Yeah, go on, Shane. Go on, Shane.
Where's my props? You've given everyone props, Laurie. Where's my props?
I'll tell you when I give you your props, Shane. When Bivol fights Beterbiev.
But let me tell you the truth. I've never once said Bivol will beat Beterbiev. I've never once said
you don't want to fight him.
I've never once said Bivol is better than Beterbiev. I've just told you Bivol is a top fighter, and you've always said nah. This person will be in. You've called Bivol a bum before in our messages. I know you were joking, but
yeah, I was joking.
But
he needs to give Craig Richards a rematch because Craig Richards was robbed in that fight.
The truth is, and you people might laugh, but I think Craig Richards done a better job than Canelo. I'm being dead serious.
Said that. Yeah.
I'm being dead serious.
But the thing is, and this is why, I'm not going to make no apologies for what I said, but I am going to admit when I saw Bivol in against the likes of Craig Richards, even the last fight he had, I looked at those performances and I did not see a person that was going to beat Canelo, I must admit. And I'm happy to admit that I've got that wrong. In fact, you know what? Fair play to Bivol.
Who did you want to win the fight?
Now that Canelo's been beaten, we won't have to put up with some of the dick riding in boxing that has really pissed me off over the last couple of years since Canelo's been in his ascendancy. The Eddie Hearns of this world. Yeah, he woke up this morning. You know what he told me? He told me that he could beat Usyk, and I believe it. All that type of nonsense is now out the window, right? And another pet hate of mine, which was giving Canelo this pound-for-pound status, which I did not think he was deserving of, either in terms of talent or the fact that you're anointing as your pound-for-pound face of boxing. The guy's a 2-time drug cheat. And I have issues with that. So
let's let Shane jump in, man. Let's let Shane have his say on his thoughts on the fight.
Just one question before I go in. I want to ask you just a simple question. Who are you happy? Both of you, are you happy with the result yesterday, Laurie? Yes. And you're happy?
What do you mean in terms of do I think it was the right decision? Absolutely.
No, I mean no, in the sense that a lot of people because some are very big pro Canelo fans, some are anti Canelo. So generally, I'm happy because Bivol won. I really like Bivol's fighting style. But are you happy that Canelo lost, or do you not care?
I'm not really bothered. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's better for boxing that Canelo lost. I'm going to be honest with you, because like I said, the level of dick riding, especially in the press, a lot of the fans, even some of the boxers, you've seen the way they've been carrying on, man. Me and Daryl spoke about it last week. Canelo rocks up at the at the Shakur Stevenson Valdez fight, and he was getting mobbed by not just the fans but fighters as well. And you think to yourself, you guys are like paying homage to this guy, man. You know what I mean?
Literally.
You know what I mean? And I just got sick of it because I didn't think he was deserving of that status. And that was the other thing. As soon as you even dared to criticize the man, you're a hater, you're this, you're that, you're biased against Mexicans, you're only for black fighters. And I was like, well, all I'm doing is pointing out certain hard truths. You know what I mean? So in a way, now that he's been beaten, some of all that nonsense will dissipate. Listen, I will still acknowledge Canelo is a great fighter. He just miscalculated last night. Like me, he underestimated Bivol. But fortunately for me, I don't have to fight Bivol. You know what I mean? So that's where he went wrong. He picked the options, Charlo and Benavidez, in favor of Bivol and Triple G. He thought that would be an easier route, and he came unstuck. It's as simple as that.
Go on, Shane. Go off.
So to me, watching the fight and before the fight, I said this so many times. I've said this so many times. I was so confident Bivol was gonna win. Like I said to Daryl. Daryl's like, Bivol's not winning this fight. I was like, bro, he doesn't have to win on the judges' scorecards. He just needs to win on the streets. And what I mean by that is, as long as the fans see him win, because this whole week, everybody, not just Laurie, everybody knows because of the way I talk about Bivol, and it's for years, I've loved Bivol's fighting style. Like, I've always liked his style. Yes, he's boring, but I like the way he fights. And I just thought, Canelo can't beat this dude. He can't beat this dude. And I'm just thinking, watching the fight back, I expected a much more competitive fight. But after watching it, I literally just thought, this was just such an easy, like as Mayweather said, it was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk. I literally think Canelo won rounds because Bivol didn't even assert himself as much as he could. If Bivol, like, let's watch, if we actually look at it, I don't even think Bivol went through all the gears. Like Canelo, I didn't at no stage think Bivol felt he was in trouble, so he had to step up. He literally looked like how he fought any other fighter. I didn't see, and this is the problem with, I have a problem with every single person. Obviously, when Laurie was saying what he was saying, he's actually watched Bivol. But a lot of these pundits who watch boxing and these people who are involved in boxing and these boxing fans, they don't do their due diligence. Just because you don't know a fighter doesn't mean a fighter isn't good. And that was annoying for me because everybody was saying, oh, Bivol's a bum, or Canelo's just going to walk this dude. I'm thinking, have you ever watched a Bivol fight before? And I'm just thinking, now everybody's doing a 360. Oh, Canelo shouldn't have moved to 175. Bivol was always too big. But no one was saying this before the fight. So to me,
Shane, right? One thing I do have to give Bivol credit for, right? And I've got no hesitation in saying this at all, is that watching that fight last night, it wasn't just to do with size, man. He was clearly the better fighter in all facets. Yes, the size would have mattered in terms of he was able to assert himself physically, and it was obvious to me that Canelo couldn't hurt this guy. I mean, I think that the true turning point of this fight, there was a round, I'm not sure what round it was, where Canelo landed a uppercut, clean shot, right through the guard, jerked Bivol's head back. But noticeably, he was not hurt in the slightest. And listen, man, I've been in the ring. When you're fighting somebody and you know they can't hurt you, that gives you a tremendous psychological boost. And I think that added to that he was outskilling Canelo, he must have thought, you know what? I've got nothing to worry about now. My worst fears have been realized. I've been hit clean by this guy. I ain't going nowhere. Now it's time to go to work. And that's
like, Canelo fans now are, they didn't understand Canelo's limitations. And I said this before. I said Canelo's gonna move to 175, and he's gonna lose to both dudes. And I'm almost worried. I'm worried after watching that. If he fought Beterbiev, could you imagine if he fought Beterbiev? Beterbiev would have put this dude in a castle.
I said that yesterday. Yeah, he would have stopped Canelo.
He would have stopped Canelo, bro. Literally, Canelo was gassed after 6, and he was lucky that like Bivol doesn't ever put his foot on the gas and load up on punches. He could have, he just didn't, and that's his personality.
And that is why, Shane, I didn't think that he would win because of exactly what you've said there. I'd seen his previous fights, and he seemed to be a guy that fights in one gear. Once he establishes his jab and his 1-2, he's quite happy to operate in that comfort zone and just out of it. And I thought in a big fight like this, where you almost have to rip the belt from the champion's waist, I didn't think he'd get a decision on the scorecards, but I was wrong.
Got a comment here from Ash. I remember on the podcast last week, I asked you to rank in terms of the danger threat for Canelo out of those four guys, Benavidez, Charlo, Bivol, and Triple G. The order in terms of the threat, and that was the order you had it. You had it as Benavidez, Charlo, then Bivol, then Triple G. Ash is saying here, Bivol absolutely obliterates Charlo, and then.
With respect, Ash, that is a vacuous comment. That is an absolutely vacuous comment, because there was no discussion about Charlo fighting Bivol. I was talking about Canelo ducking Charlo, and I was able to provide evidence that he ducked him at 154 and 160, and I had reason to believe he was ducking him at 168. And you know what? I'd just like to point out another thing for all these people who are throwing Bivol at me and saying, "Oh, see." How do you guys know that Charlo and Benavidez wouldn't have done to Canelo last night what Bivol did? You know, listen, what last night proves to you fanboys out there, and I could use other words, but I'm going to try not to be rude, is that this guy is by no means invincible.
Exactly.
I've been telling you, man, from time, the guy's not invincible. Austin Trout, life and death fight. A lot of people thought that Austin Trout won. Maybe the knockdown in the 8th or 9th round saved that for Canelo. But again, never going to get it on the cards. Erislandy Lara clearly outboxed Canelo. Didn't get the decision. Yeah? A lot of people said that. I thought that Lara let himself down in some of the rounds because instead of just boxing, he should have gone on the front foot a bit more and made it clear, like what Bivol did last night. But he didn't do that. He boxed his way to what a lot of people thought was a win, but he wasn't giving it. You saw what Floyd did to it. Absolutely cleaned his clock, and that was like a nigh on 37-year-old Floyd Mayweather.
The two Golovkin fights.
People, man, don't start all this like Bivol's the only one in the world that could do this. He's not.
No, he's not. He's not.
There's absolutely a case for saying that Charlo, especially Benavidez, who in his prime right now, could have done the same thing. Maybe they might even have stopped Canelo.
I'm not arguing with that.
I know not you. This is not aimed at you, bro. It's not aimed at you.
No, the truth is, me personally, that's a fact. There's no denying that. It's just people need to understand that this guy has limitations. I'm hearing people say he should go up and fight Usyk and all that craziness. I'm like, bro, this guy is gonna. He's insane. Not that. He's not. No offense, but he's not that good. Like he fought Kovalev, and I thought he looked human in that fight as well. Yeah. He looked so human in that fight, and I think I just thought Bivol, a fresh younger fighter.
When he fought Caleb Plant, I spoke to quite a few people that said that up until the stoppage, they had Caleb Plant up or level. I spoke to people, now listen, I don't necessarily agree with this, that said that Billy Joe Saunders was doing well against him up until he got clapped and had his jaw broken or his cheekbone fractured or whatever it was. So people, stop this nonsense about Canelo is unbeatable, he's this invincible guy. He's not. Triple G in the first fight, a lot of people said that he lost that fight too. So
my man Daniel in the house here, he's saying, how can you duck Charlo and fight Bivol?
Simple, you don't fight him. You see, this is the same thing that Amir Khan was doing, right? Remember when he didn't want to fight Kell Brook? It's the same argument he rolled out there. How can I be ducking Kell Brook when I've gone up to fight Canelo? Look at that.
But you know what?
Yeah. But look what happened years later. When
I would say, Canelo ducked Andrade more than he ducked Charlo.
He's ducked Andrade, he's ducked Charlo, he's ducked Benavidez, unashamedly. For Benavidez, he said, "Oh, I don't want to fight Mexican fighters anymore." Andrade, it's because he's this so-called horrible fighter. And Charlo, he said, "Well, you go and fight A and B, and then the winner of A and B fights me." Did you ever hear like people like Duran, Hagler, and Hearns and Leonard do that type of thing? No, I don't think so.
Devin Haney said, who said that? Devin Haney said that Usyk was a winnable fight for Canelo. These guys are on some drugs, bro.
And a lot of them are boxers.
It's because he took a picture with him. It's because he took a picture of him the other day.
Exactly. Bernard Hopkins, some of the stuff that he came out with this week, unbelievable, bro.
But he had Eddie Hearn saying, "Oh, I want to see a rematch." Canelo had a hand. He said Canelo had a handicap. There was a handicap for this fight. I'm like, bro, do you know why Eddie Hearn's so shameless? You know why Eddie Hearn's so shameless? Eddie Hearn has a long-term deal with Bivol. He doesn't have a long-term deal with Canelo. Yet he's still backing Canelo. So I'm thinking, bro, you're supposed to be a promoter, impartial. This guy is so shameless.
Canelo said in the post-fight, I can't believe it, that he said he won the fight by a couple of rounds. Now, either the guy's still concussed or he's delusional because...
Do you think he gave up in that fight? Because if you watch
he's physically frustrated
after 6 rounds. That's number one. People out there saying it's because he went on a vegan diet, blah, blah, blah. No, maybe it's because, forget about the vegan diet. It could be because maybe he's not taking stuff now that he was taking previously.
All right, let me read this comment here quickly. Big up Harvey. He says here, Canelo does need some respect here. The smaller man took a risk to fight an elite 175-pounder and he fell short. This is what great fighters do. He still beats everyone at 160 and 168. 175 is clearly a step too far. Do you think that you two are being a bit harsh on Canelo?
No.
You don't think you're being a bit harsh?
No. Harvey wasn't saying that before the fight. I don't know Harvey personally, but the people, there was a large, I don't know what Harvey was saying, but Canelo, there's a large Canelo fan base who was literally setting this guy to fight everyone, Makabu, Usyk and all of that. I don't want to hear after the fact all of these excuses. I don't want to hear it. You lost. And the truth is, bro, the reason why that's not fair is because at the end of the day, when he was a champion at 175, he was a legitimate champion. He held a belt at 175. So I have to hold you to that standard. If you're going up and cherry picking an old, out of date, weight drained Kovalev and picking up a belt, that was a cherry pick. Who
incidentally, Shane, had come off a life and death against
Anthony Yarde.
Not even 3 months before that fight.
And Alida Alvarez, but he got knocked out by Alida Alvarez before that as well. So literally, if you're gonna put yourself in that bracket, no, I'm not being too harsh. The truth is, you're a top fighter, but you lost the fight. And the truth is, if you were humble in defeat, then maybe you thought you won. I mean, what drugs are you on, bro? What are you smoking? I mean, it could have easily been 10-2. It could have easily been 10-2, bro.
Let me just introduce my main man here, all the way from Philadelphia, in the building. Go and check out his channel, guys. It is legit. My main man here, Jeff TV, is in the house. What is going on, my brother, man? Good to have you back on the stream. Good to have you back on the channel, bro.
Hey, man, big shout out to you. Big shout out to Laurie. I haven't talked to you since you hit 1K, so big congrats to you on that, too.
Yes, big up, bro. 1-5 now. 1-5.
1-5. Excuse me. 1-5. He moving.
You're getting there, bro. But listen, we got you on. I want to get your thoughts on the fight last night because I didn't get to speak to you beforehand. So just let me know what your thoughts were going into it and just your reflections on the fight itself and the result and everything else.
Just my thoughts on the fight itself. You'd be hard pressed to find 3 good rounds that Canelo won. I had to be honest with you. If this was anybody outside of Canelo, we'd have been like this. He got spanked. He got spanked in that fight. But going into the fight, I felt like Canelo 175 was just a bad weight for him. I barely like him at 168. You know what I'm saying? I barely like him at 168. And if you go look at his last couple fights, you look at Kovalev and Laurie, I know you'll agree with this one. Kovalev was in the nursing home when that fight happened. He was in a nursing home when that fight happened. And you can make the argument that Kovalev was winning that fight at the time of the stoppage. You can make that argument. Caleb Plant, he didn't look too great in that fight. He was on the Europe.
Caleb Plant up.
Yeah. And a lot of people had Plant up, or it was close to being even, like it was similar to the Kovalev situation. And then before that, he had a couple of easy ones. He had Billy Joe. That was an easy fight for him. He had a couple other ones that was an easy fight for him. Bivol was the best opponent that he had since Triple G first fight. It's the biggest competition that he had. I just thought it was just a bad style matchup.
One sec, Jeff. Harvey, I know you keep it real, brother. I know you keep it real, for real. I definitely do. We spoke a lot about boxing. Carry on, Jeff.
Yeah, it was just a bad matchup, and we always say that, you know, matchmaking is 90% of the game. And just I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the United States, people act like Canelo is like God. Like he can go from 160 to 68 to 75 to cruiserweight. Now they wanted him to fight Usyk at 201 pounds. I'm like, this man is not Superman. We got weight classes for a reason.
Let me tell you something. It's exactly the same in the UK. It's actually quite
okay.
Yeah, for some reason, this guy's got, it's like he's got some psychological hold over people. And if you even dare to differ from the dick riding narrative, then you get called a hater. You don't like Mexicans, you're racist, you only support black fighters. I've been saying from time that this guy, Canelo, is not pound for pound number one. I've put forward salient reasons. I've said Terence Crawford. I know some people would say Usyk. I don't have a massive problem with that. But Terence Crawford is head and shoulders, in my view, pound for pound number one. You look at his achievements. He went lightweight, light welterweight, now welterweight. Unbeaten, not taking any peds or any stuff like that. Doesn't cherry pick, don't duck. You know what I mean? And people, oh no, it's Canelo this, Canelo that. Canelo's cruiserweight. He wanted to fight Makubu. I'm like, yo, bro, get out of here.
What about Usyk? What about Usyk in this pound for pound? Because for me, I think you can make a strong case for him right now, considering he was a former undisputed champion at cruiserweight, and he moved up and he took on AJ, defeated him comprehensively. He's now the unified champion at heavyweight. He's beat some stiff competition along the way as well. Go on, Shane.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, honestly, it's apples and pears. I'm literally 50-50. Yeah. One day I'll say Crawford, one day I'll say Usyk. Me and Laurie was going back and forth about this. And the truth is, I can make an argument for Usyk. I can make a very strong argument for Usyk. But Jeff always says something to me which I can't disagree with, which is, if I want one fighter to go in there and win a fight for me against any fighter, and if I was just saying, put a fighter in the ring and they're guaranteeing me getting a result, I'm putting in Crawford. Like, to me, Crawford is that. If my life was on the line and I need someone to win a fight, it's Crawford. Crawford's never even had a tough, like, you look at most of the fights where he has tough moments. He doesn't have tough fights where it's a controversial decision or it's like it could have gone either way. Some people thought Brady beat Usyk. Some people actually thought that. Some people thought Chisora beat Usyk. Yes, personally, I have Usyk pound for pound number one only because he's done everything in the sport, including amateurs. You know, won every amateur thing there is to win, and then won everything in the pros there is to win. So that's why I will say, and he hasn't cherry picked, as Laurie will agree, and he hasn't popped dirty for anything, undefeated. So they both have done so much great things. But when you bring in that, I guess again it's apples and pears, man. I think both of them are really it's nip and tuck. I've never thought Canelo Canelo's never achieved. He's never wiped out a division for me. He's never even 168. Benavidez was that stone he left unturned. He didn't clean out 168. He didn't clean out 160.
He's still got time to. He could go back down in weight and do that.
Yeah, but he lost to Bivol. So Bivol's a bum. That's what every Canelo fan was saying. Bivol's a nobody.
Let me say this. Laurie wasn't too fond of Bivol, as you know, going into this fight. He wasn't too fond of Bivol. So what's your opinion of Bivol now, Laurie? Has it changed?
No, listen, I said before the fight, and I think I'm quoting verbatim when I said that, I goes, he's got very decent skills, but I don't think he's got the mindset to beat Canelo. Because up until last night, I wasn't convinced that he was going to go out there and let his nuts hang. But last night, maybe he didn't need to. Maybe he felt a few of those punches from Canelo and thought, you know what, I can easily outbox this guy and turn it on when I want. And that's what he did. Because Canelo never hurt him once. Okay, I don't think, to be fair to Canelo, who's got a very decent chin, elite chin, actually, I described it on the show. He didn't hurt Canelo either, but he was so superior in every other aspect that he didn't go all out for the stoppage. I honestly think, especially when Canelo started gassing out round about 6-7 and was looking tired and his body language had shifted. I'm not saying he quit, but you could clearly see that his body language had shifted. Maybe had Bivol been a bit what we call nastier, he might have gone all out and got the stoppage. And this is the difference, what I said, between him and Charlo and Benavidez. With Charlo and Benavidez, you have aggressive guys who hit hard. And if they got you hurt, they're looking to take you out. that was the reason why I said I would have preferred to see Canelo in against those two guys. I think if you get Benavidez in there with Canelo last night, he stops it. And I'm telling you the truth. When he goes down, if he ever goes down to 168, he ain't gonna want to fight Benavidez, bro. I'll tell you that now.
Let's answer this question here, and I'll start with Jeff. Big up my bro DS. He said here, where do you guys think Bivol fits into the pound for pound list after that win over Canelo?
No. We can't have that conversation. He's got.
So why not? What, you can't have the conversation?
Go on,
because Canelo.
No, let Jeff. I'll start with Jeff.
Do I think he's pound for pound right now?
Do you think
like
he's
top 10
in the list at all? Yeah.
No, and I love Bivol. I love Bivol, but there's a lot of other guys that's been putting in major work. He's outside of the top 10 for me. If he beats Beterbiev, now we can talk. We can talk at that point. But I look at it like Bivol has beat a Canelo, and Canelo, he just shouldn't have been in that fight. He shouldn't have been in that fight, period. So I look at it and I'm like, I was expecting for Bivol to win that fight. And I'm like, was he going to get the actual decision on the cards? And Shane and I say it all the time. I'm like, we said it before the fight. We was like, Bivol has to either win 9-3 with a knockdown or 10-2 just to get a draw. So the fact that he actually got the decision shows you how outclassed Canelo was. Like, not only was he the house fire, he's the whole company. He's the company guy.
Jeff, check this out. Do you realize with those scorecards at 115, 113, all it needed was for Canelo to win one more round, and that would have been a draw. That's what I'm saying, bro. You know what I mean?
Yo, and Laurie, you know the thing that's crazy? They all had the first 4 rounds for Canelo.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the first round, he got spanked. He got spanked in the first round. Like, I'm just like, it's crazy, but that just goes to show how bad Bivol beat Canelo. Like, he literally beat the CEO of the company by decision. Like, you know what I mean?
Actually saying here, you man keep blaming Canelo. Stop absolving Benavidez of the blame for missing out on the Canelo fight. He lost his title. He did, Ash. I agree with you on that. He did lose his title. I said that to Laurie in the show.
Well, those are just convenient excuses to hide behind, man. I mean, there was no secret that this man wanted to unify the belts when he knew that Benavidez was out the way.
I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
Those of us who know the sport, Jared, we all know this to be true. People like Ash, I'm trying not to disrespect the guy, right? I'm trying not to and I hope this doesn't come across as disrespectful, but try and be objective. Why didn't he fight Charlo at 154? Why didn't he fight him at 160? Why didn't he fight Andre? Coming up with his stuff about, oh, he's a horrible fighter, yet you fought Avni Yildirim.
But this is the thing with the Andrade situation. He was one. Everybody, this I keep using the same example. He was one fight away from being undisputed at 160. Andrade had the final belt, and he didn't fight him. And then with Benavidez,
because he's a horrible fighter. Yet you fought Yildirim, Callum Smith, and
with Benavidez, Benavidez and Zerda Ramirez were WBO and WBC champion. All of a sudden, once they're not champions anymore, I want to be undisputed at 168. I mean, that is just so funny. He didn't have no intentions to do that before. He had no intentions to do that before.
You know what the ironic thing about, which is in a way that now that I wouldn't say I wish he lost, but you know, one thing that is kind of ironic now that he has lost is that he's in a very difficult situation because he either takes the rematch with Bivol and gets his ass spanked again, maybe even stop this time now that Bivol knows there's nothing to fear.
Right.
Or he's got to drop down to 168 and fight those very same guys that he was ducking before. And what
he will fight Golovkin, bro. His next fight will be Golovkin.
That was gonna be my next topic. Obviously, Canelo did say afterwards that there was a rematch clause. He was going to activate that rematch clause to take on Dimitri Bivol. He did say that after the fight, but we're yet to see if he actually does go through with it. Jeff, do you think he goes through with it? And if he does, what do you think he needs to do different in a rematch to stand any chance of winning? Because even though he got dominated, it was only like 115, 113 across the board.
He'd be a damn fool if he activated the rematch. I'd say that. He'd be a fool if he activated. But let's entertain it. If he does activate it, inside the ring. To be honest with you, and this is not, I'm not putting Bivol up here like top 3 in the game and all of that. It's just styles make fights. I'm like, Bivol is the bigger dude, the stronger dude. He's the natural 175. The two things that affect Canelo the most is a jab, and you get Canelo on the back foot. And Bivol he did both of those things last night. And I just don't see a scenario where Canelo actually wins that fight. Like, I don't think he should activate the rematch clause. I think he should just go back down to 168 and go see what he can do at 168. If he want to take on Triple G, then cool, no problem. But there's sharks circling around Canelo now. There's sharks circling around Canelo now. So he needs to make the best possible decision for himself. And we need to highlight Reynoso too. He is trash in fight. He is trash in fight. He don't make no adjustments in between rounds. And I'm like, you still in checks. You still in checks, bro. You still in checks. That's like having Laurie and Daryl on my show. They come on the show and they don't talk. No, you come on the show. It's your job to talk. It's your job to talk. So, like, he goes into the corner in between rounds. He don't say anything to Canelo that's productive. When the Valdez fight happened with Shakur, he didn't say anything to Valdez to try to change the tide of the fight. Everything that Valdez did in that fight, he figured it out himself. We gotta highlight Reynoso too.
I mean that's a fact. Because how do you expect him to formulate a game plan after losing when he couldn't even come up with a game plan in the game? And I'm just telling you, Canelo is so, like, as much as I respect Canelo and what he's achieved, he's a limited fighter, and he's always been a limited fighter. He's just always fought dudes that's a certain style that's made limited, for the style that he fights.
The word
no,
limited.
but let me tell you why. Yeah, let me tell you why. When was the last time we saw Canelo fight in reverse? He doesn't fight fighters you get him going in reverse. If you look at it, when he fought Golovkin,
I thought he did a decent job against Danny Jacobs defensively.
But Danny Jacobs didn't get him going in reverse. Danny Jacobs didn't push him back, didn't try to push him back. That's what I'm saying. Like, I always said, that's why I think Benavidez has a great chance to beat Canelo as well. Anybody who can get Canelo going on the back foot, going in reverse, that's when he's going to lose, bro. If you just let him dictate the pace of the fight, he's going to beat you. And the problem with Bivol was, Bivol made Canelo work when he wanted to rest. And that's the difference with boxing, bro. When you're fighting a certain level, and that's what I'm saying, like, people are talking about what Canelo should do next. The truth is, I want to see Bivol fight the winner of Beterbiev, Joe Smith. That's what I want to see.
I agree.
And the truth is, Canelo should never even be in that argument. Because after watching yesterday, and I said this earlier in the live, if he fought Beterbiev, we could be looking at a funeral right now. We could be arranging a funeral right now. I'm being dead serious. Because
you know the problem. Look at this comment here from San7. And again, I shake my head when I see stuff like that. Why should everybody have to fight everybody else just to fight Canelo? If they've earned a world title shot by their previous accomplishments, then they should get the world title shot. Did you hear Marvin Hagler say to Sugar Ray Leonard, "You got to go and fight everyone else before you can fight me"? Did you hear some listen? And that is how these fighters achieve their greatness, by beating other great fighters. Did Liston say to a young Ali, "Oh, you got to go and fight X amount of fighters and then come and fight me"? No. You know what I mean? I don't, you know what I mean? This is nonsense.
Joe Saunders fought Shepard Asufi and Martin Murray before he fought Canelo.
These guys are top fighters, right? And you want them to go in a round robin just so they can fight Canelo. They've earned their positions. They're other belt holders. They want to unify. Give them the chance to unify. That's how we know who's great and who isn't.
Can I respond to CN7?
And then come and fight me.
Laurie, we get that a lot in the States. That exact same comment.
Yeah,
and what happens is a lot of people that be on the same message boards, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, things like that. And CN7, I'm not saying that you're doing this, but a lot of times people see these comments on social media and then they just take the same comment and run with it. The reason I disagree with that is several reasons. Benavidez was a champion at 168. He lost his title at 168. But the bottom line is, he's one of the baddest men at 168.
Yeah.
He's one of that. Nothing's going to change that. You know what I'm saying?
It's a natural fight. The two of them are 168 pounders. They've both got Mexican heritage. everybody wanted to listen. Daryl, tell the truth. If you could have polled 100 people before, I know people are coming at me and saying this and that. If you could have polled 100 people and they say, who would you rather see Canelo fight? Bivol or Benavidez? I guarantee, even Shane would probably have said he preferred to see Benavidez.
No, you would have never heard me say that.
Shane would have been the one out of the 100 that have been like, Bivol.
you would have been that one out of the 100.
He'd have been that one.
Or that two, maybe Dan Rafael and Gareth A. Davis.
That's a fact.
I spoke to Gareth A. Davis a couple of months ago, and I'm not gonna lie. I told this guy, like, bro, you need to stop with this. You need to stop with this jumping on the coattail, bro. You need to stop with it, bro. It's not good.
All journalistic credentials depend on it. Trust me. These guys like Gareth A. Davis, Dan Rafael. I said this to Darryl a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I stand by every word. Yes, they may be able to articulate a sentence. Yes, they may have done their research, but especially Gareth A. Davis, not so much Dan Rafael, but especially they have no boxing integrity. They have no fullness of knowledge. If you scrape beneath the surface with these guys, right, they don't have it. The other day, and I digress slightly, but I want to make this point. The other day, Gareth A. Davis was chastising Adi Oladipo because Adi wouldn't agree with him that he was saying that Dillian White is a better fighter than Anthony Joshua. And the only reason why Gareth A. Davis was doing that was because he knew that Tyson Fury was going to beat Dillian White. So then he could go along with this narrative that Tyson Fury is one of the greatest modern day heavyweights of all time. Absolute nonsense when he was bigging up Dillian in that. Because he'd never bigged up Dillian in that way before. But because he was fighting Fury and he was going to lose, he wanted to be able to put forth this ridiculous narrative that Tyson Fury is this some.
That's a good question. Ask that question.
Stefan, he knows his stuff. He knows. He said here, has Canelo ever clearly beaten the top fighter at any weight without controversy?
Good question.
No.
No.
The second Triple G fight was how controversial was the set? It was. How controversial was that second fight with Triple G? Because you said you thought he beat him convincingly in that fight.
Who, me? I thought he won clearly, yeah, by a couple of rounds.
But the question was at the top fight at any weight class. In that second fight, I personally believe in the second Golovkin-Canelo fight, I would say at that time I didn't think Canelo was the Golovkin was the best at that weight class. Honestly, I said it on after watching
at the time.
After watching the Danny Jacobs fight, when Danny Jacobs fought Golovkin, I did not think Golovkin was the best at that weight class. I did not think Golovkin was the best at that weight class.
He did go into that fight. Did he have the Ring magazine? But going into that fight at the time, was he recognized as number one? So I guess you could say, technically, I guess you could say that one then. 154. Obviously, he beat Lara.
He lost to Floyd. He lost to Floyd.
Controversial, yeah, lost to Floyd. But yeah, it's a good question, man.
See, when Andre was campaigning for that fight against Canelo, and Canelo was like, get that back out of here, man. All these guys were laughing and spewing forth all this nonsense about. Because they were happy for Canelo to duck the guy.
And that's why I'll never respect Eddie Hearn. I'll never respect Eddie Hearn because Eddie Hearn was laughing at the dude you promote. This guy has no allegiance to you. Canelo had no allegiance, no tie to you. You were laughing at a dude you promote. And the dude was saying you ain't fought nobody. But it's your job to get him fights. This is a dude who genuinely wanted to fight Canelo, genuinely wanted to fight Charlo, genuinely wanted to fight Golovkin, and you're the promoter sitting there laughing at him. I just thought that was so distasteful.
Hey, Shane, let me add on to that real quick. As far as Eddie Hearn is concerned, you got to remember this. And I love Eddie Hearn. I tell Shane all the time he need to hire me to consult him as far as his business moves. You got to remember Eddie Hearn had, for people that don't know, he had Kell Brook and Amir Khan signed at the same time, and he still couldn't get the fight done. That's a fact.
Facts.
So even that's a bad indictment on Eddie Hearn. Because if Al Heyman had a situation like that, that fight gets done.
He also had Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith, same weight class, both champions. That fight didn't get made neither.
Yeah. So he has a bad history of not making fights with guys that he got in his own backyard.
he couldn't get the Cambosis Devin Haney across the line.
I mean, that was embarrassing. That was the worst one.
I want to answer this, Laurie. It's a response to your answer before. So he says here, so you want Canelo to fight them all one by one? Just fight each other and make great fights. Let's have 50-50 fights. Benavidez has said that he will fight any of them. And I blame Charlo for the one of them fights not happening there, because he came out of all them excuses saying that Benavidez needs to take the vaccine and all. Benavidez wants to smoke. I believe that with anyone. With the others, I'm not sure. I don't know if they're just around for that Canelo.
Charlo, I would say Charlo especially, because Charlo also didn't take the Andrade fight as well.
Yeah, Charlo deserves a lot of the blame here.
Charlo, but at the same time, Benavidez was a world champion at 168.
What I'm trying to make with Charlo, Daryl, is that by common consensus, Canelo ducked him at 154 and 160. This guy's been chasing Canelo now for years, right? And you're coming up with all these continual excuses as to why you don't want to fight them. Listen, this is a man, right? And
is Sam making a point here? Is he making a point? Saying that why should they not all?
This is a man who once said, Canelo, is that I'm not going to fight no Mexican fighters. And I said to you on the show last week, though, you imagine if Charlo or any African-American fighter, imagine if Shakur Stevenson won the belt from Valdez and said, you know what, from now on, I'm not fighting no more African-American fighters. Right. Do you know how the world is judging for making a comment like that?
Could you imagine if Crawford said that about Spence? You know, I'm not fighting no African-American, I'm not fighting no black fights. No, could you imagine what the backlash Crawford would get for that?
Hey, Daryl, that's the same guy that made the other comment too. Like, the thing about it, bro, like when you're the cash cow, when you're the face of the sport, like you got to play under different rules. And that's the point that I'm trying to make to you. Is he supposed to fight every one of them one by one? No. But if they are one of the top guys in the division at that particular time, it's not a problem for Canelo to fight him. And when you are the cash cow, if you want a fight, you get it. So if the cash cow doesn't fight somebody, you can point at the cash cow, because Canelo gets what he wants when he wants. And that's what every cash cow, you can go back 30 years. Pacquiao, he got what he wanted. Pacquiao, when is the last time Pacquiao fought a mandatory? Think about that. Pacquiao got what he wanted. Floyd, he got what he wanted. He never fought a mandatory. You can go before that, the Sugar Ray Leonards of the world and guys like that. They fought who they wanted when they wanted. So when he doesn't fight a Benavidez, you can look at Canelo. When he don't fight a Charlo, you can look at Canelo. He doesn't fight a Beterbiev, you can look at Canelo, because he controls the landscape. He fights who he wants. So when Laurie says, hey, he's fighting the Avni Yildirums of the world, that's part of the reason why you're getting the criticism that you're getting. You're fighting the Callum Smiths of the world. That's why you're getting some of the criticism that you're getting. It's the fact that he can get what he wants. If I'm like, yo, I can get a New York strip, I can get a T-bone steak, and I decide to go to the dollar store and go get a burger from out the freezer, that's my fault. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so it's just, it's a whole different ballgame.
What about going back to Stefan's question about beating the recognized number one at the time? Callum Smith did hold the ring belt. He did win the World Boxing Super Series.
He also came off a loss.
He also came
off a loss. Callum Smith also came off a loss because he lost to John Ryder. He also came off a loss.
Yeah.
So
he and Daryl, what you said is true. Like from a technical aspect, yeah, it's true. Those are the cases. But the thing with Canelo, he gets him at the right time too. He get him at the right time too.
And the reason why that argument is flawed, and I repeat, is that with Charlo and Andrade and Benavidez and people like that, you're not talking about up and coming fighters, though. You're talking about fighters who had world title belts and they're looking to unify divisions and establish themselves as great fighters. You cannot become a great fighter if you don't get the opportunity. So just like Canelo was afforded the opportunity against some of the other fighters, he should then afford the opportunity to other fighters. And not only that, Daryl, from a fan's perspective, it gives the fans the fights they want to see. Like I said, nobody was calling for that Bivol fight yesterday except Shane. No one was calling for it. They all wanted Benavidez or Charlo. And like I said, I actually thought that Canelo would start as a favorite against Charlo. So I'm not saying that Charlo would necessarily have beaten him. I'm saying that option, Bivol and Triple G, was the lesser of the options when you consider that it would have been Charlo and Benavidez, the other side of that option. And he cherry picked it, underestimating Bivol, and now he's paid the price, mate. So good. That's good. That's karma. That's karma.
So what's next for
Shane,
Bivol?
Shane, do you want to answer this question here? Big up. I think this might be Punch Smollett, you know, he might have changed his name. Big him up. But he says here, Canelo is not a top 5 Mexican of all time. Do you lot agree?
Okay, so in my personal opinion, I have to disagree. The reason why I have to disagree is because I have to go by my lifetime, which isn't that long. You know, obviously, there's certain people who you definitely have to put in there, like Julio Cesar Chavez and stuff like that. He has to be in it. But when it comes to Canelo, I do feel like his accomplishments are still great. I still feel like being undisputed champion at 168, four-weight world champion, and his win against Danny Jacobs, I do think was impressive. His win against Golovkin was impressive. But I do feel like when you look at the way he was perceived, you know, I just don't feel like you can put him in that bracket of the best Mexican fighter of all time. And a lot of people are saying he's arguably one of the best of all time. I mean, I didn't ever once see that. I didn't ever. And to be fair, I'm being dead serious. Even moving forward, I'm looking at Canelo and thinking, you got to be careful how you cherry pick now, because you're looking like food right now. If I'm not going to lie, like if he decided to stay at 175, I can't. He loses to every champion right now. I'm being dead serious, and I'm not gonna lie.
You think you lose to Joe Smith Jr.?
The reason why I'll tell you that is because Joe Smith Jr. will walk through his punches as well. I think Joe Smith Jr.'s got much better punch resilience than anyone he's fought. So not only would Joe Smith Jr. walk through those punches, but he's just so much physically bigger than him. Now
I think he's done at 175.
He's done.
No, what do you think Canelo should do then? Because if Triple G, you know, it's not a fight that you want to see. It's not. Wait, let me finish the question. It's not a fight that you want to see, but for Canelo, is that a good comeback fight for him? Because it's a big fight, it's a winnable fight, and it allows him to carry on at 168. Is that what you would do?
It's a very winnable fight, but he will become the laughing stock of boxing if he takes that fight.
Really?
In my opinion. You know what? I say that, but in my opinion, he would, and maybe most of yours. But for the dick riders and all that out there, they probably want him to take that Triple G fight because they know he's going to win it, and they will somehow think that he's saved face by fighting Triple G. When we all know that Triple G is basically well past it. I wouldn't say he's totally washed up.
I think the zone are actually going to push for the Golovkin fight. Do you want to know why?
Because how are they going to sell that fight? How are they going to sell it?
No, but I'll tell you why. Because if they push for the Bivol fight and he loses, remember, all their money was invested in Canelo. What the hell do they do with this dude now? This dude lost to a nobody. He lost to a nobody. And that's why I'm saying, if I'm Eddie Hearn, bro, I'm like, bro, I'm putting this guy in with a cake, with a Golovkin or someone he can beat, just to build up his name again.
Do you know something, Shane? Do you know something, Shane? People who lose back-to-back rematches, you'll find that history judges them harshly. You've only got to look no further than Deontay Wilder. Look what happened to him. Fought Tyson Fury 3 times on the bounce. Drew the first one, lost the last 2. Comprehensively. Look at him. People are saying he's washed up. And you could go down...
Yeah.
And look at people who lose back-to-back rematch. They're never the same fighters again. So that's why I said that if he opts to fight Bivol again,
would you give him credit for doing that? For actually trying to go in there against a man that beat him comprehensively and trying to be great?
I would answer your question by saying there's a very thin line between being foolish and being brave.
What do you think, Jeff? What do you think Canelo should do?
I don't. He need to get out of 175. I know that much. He looking like a 2-piece meal with fries at 175. Like he just like I don't think he if Beterbiev was landing those shots that Bivol was landing last night, he gets stopped. I don't think he beats Beterbiev.
That fight wouldn't even go 3 rounds.
Yeah, I don't think he beats Bivol again in a rematch. I think Joe Smith is a 50-50 fight at this point. And there's other guys. It's Zerto. Zerto at 175 will give Canelo hell. Zerto will give him hell.
Listen, you see what happened last night, and in a way, although, like I said, I don't want to make it sound like I was wishing that Canelo won,
Right.
Or wishing that he
lost.
However, that loss, given how comprehensive it was as well, has put him in a very precarious position. Because, like I said, if he takes the rematch with Bivol again and gets beaten like he did last night, or possibly even worse, his career at the top is pretty much done. If you go down to 168, you're going to have to fight some of the killers down there. And like Shane said, after watching that last night, they've now become emboldened. They're going to want that fight more than ever. Like Benavidez,
do you think Canelo's done? Like what?
I'm not saying he's done. I'm saying that a large part of the whole Canelo psyche was that aura he had around him.
Yeah.
You lose like he did last night. You lose a lot of that. That fear.
It's a lot like Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, you know.
Yeah, that fear factor is gone.
The fear factor is gone, and I said this before. The worst thing that a superstar can do is lose to somebody that don't have a name.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened with Canelo
In
Alvarez.
the fashion that he lost as well.
In
like,
the fashion in which he lost.
So comfortably. Like,
don't let that 115, 113 fool anyone, man.
Hey, Laurie, you know the thing that's crazy? You know, the one thing that you said was very true. A lot of people that do the rematches and they lose, they look bad in the history books. I'll give you another one. Shane Mosley, when he lost back-to-back to Vernon Forrest. That was a bad style matchup for Shane. But Shane was so competitive that he just couldn't get past the fact that that Vernon Forrest was beating him, and he lost to him twice.
History. Tyson, Lennox Lewis. Look at Romain Stiverne when he lost to Wilder back-to-back. That second loss, knocked out in the round. Never heard from him again, really.
You got to be very careful. You got to be very careful with them rematches.
I got a question for you, Daryl, though. I got a question for you, Daryl, because this mainly revolving around Canelo. So I got a question about Bivol.
Yeah, I was going to get onto Bivol, so yeah.
Let's say Joe Smith beats Beterbiev. What do you want to see then? Because Bivol's already beaten Joe Smith. So what do you want to see then? What do you want to see Bivol do then?
You could give Joe Smith the opportunity to fight him in the rematch. Definitely.
But not only that, you could make the case that Joe Smith has improved beyond recognition. And that does happen. Because when he fought Bivol the first time, he put it down to the fact that he wasn't even a full-time professional. The man was working on a building site and had to take the fight early in his career. And I've heard him say, and I've got no reason to disbelieve him, he said, listen, I'm a totally different fighter then. For a start, I wasn't even a full-time pro when I fought Bivol. So you never know, bro. But the point is, when you take a rematch with a fighter that you've already lost to, you're taking a big risk in terms of your career if you lose again. Because if you lose again, especially if you lose again worse than you did the first time, your career takes on a whole different new look. Put it that way.
How about this question here? If Canelo can drag Bivol down to 168, does it become 50?
Can I get that? Can I get that? Yeah. Listen. This is why I said that Eddie Hearn needs to hire me, because I said if Canelo was going to fight Bivol, he need Bivol to come down to 168 because he has no shot at 175. So if he drags Bivol down to 168, it would be a more competitive fight because Bivol has to come down, but he still gets stomped.
But at the same time, bro, it wouldn't look good.
Jeff, you make an excellent point. You know what I honestly think?
It wouldn't look good, Shane. Sorry, Laurie.
You know what I honestly think happened, bro? And listen, I was guilty of it myself. So in a way, I can almost understand what Canelo did. Is that he watched Bivol in against people like Craig Richards, and he thought, you know what? This guy's not all that, I can beat him. Plus, if he goes points, I'm going to get it anyway. Let me take this fight. I don't want to fight. I don't want to lose to another Mexican fighter. I don't want to lose to that big mouth Charlo with a big right hand. If I fight this guy, man, and even if I lose, I could say, oh, it was 175 pounder, blah, blah, blah. And he's miscalculated and got his ass whooped. That's it.
Shout out to Craig Richards as well, bro, because his performance against Bivol is looking fantastic right now. I'm not even gonna lie. Shout out to Craig Richards, because Craig Richards done a much better job against Bivol than Canelo.
Yeah. What about this question here from A Stone? He says here, Canelo's days at the top billing as being the face of boxing is done with back-to-back losses. Do you agree? If he was to fight again and lose,
absolutely it is.
I agree. I agree 100% because you got to look at it this way. It's the timing of that second loss as well. So let's just say he activates the rematch, right? So we talking later on this year, maybe October or something like that. He takes on the rematch against Bivol and he loses again. If the boxing gods are shining down on us, we should be getting Spence and Crawford around that time as well. So there's other fights and other fighters that are putting themselves in prime position to take over that face of boxing spot over Canelo around that time, around later on this year, early next year. The winner of Spence Crawford, you can make the argument they could possibly be the face of boxing. The winner of that fight. You got
AJ Usyk.
You got AJ Usyk. I mean, if Usyk wins that fight, he is. I mean, you got to put him in terms of accomplishments. You got to put him all-time status. You know what I'm saying? At that point, you got Charlo Castano. That's undisputed at 154. We got a lot going on.
Devin Haney Cambosis.
Devin Haney Cambosis. We got a lot going on. We got a lot, and we got these young pups out here that's doing their thing.
Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford is the biggest fight in boxing right now, hands down. You know what I mean?
Eddie Hearn saying it's the rematch between Canelo and Bivol.
Yeah, I saw that. That was ridiculous. The biggest fight in boxing. Eddie Hearn, he can talk a bit, can't he? He can talk a bit.
Yeah, Eddie Hearn.
But he wanted to cry in that press conference, bro. That dude wanted to cry in his Canelo pajamas, bro.
As well, right? Because last week, in my view, they got away with one. It's kind of gone under the radar. And it's interesting that I woke up this morning and I saw a tweet that made me laugh. It was from Amanda Serrano. And she said, now that I've had time, I've gone back and looked at the fight and I thought I won it. And I said, and Daryl, I said to you that she was going to do this, didn't I? Last week, she was trying to appear all humble and I don't want to be like Clarissa Shields and be that unclassy person. Great fight. Yeah, you know you won the fight. Tell the people you won the fight. Stop being scared of what you feel, bro. You won that fight against Katie Taylor. They stitched you up. Yes, it was a close fight. It might not have been an outright robbery. Right. I guarantee you, most neutrals who watch that fight will say straight away that Serrano won. So why
Katie Taylor's not skilled.
Person. Oh, Katie Taylor is great. Not even a week later, you know, Shane. You look at the tweets today. Serrano come out and said unequivocally, "I won that fight."
Yeah, Katie Taylor. Yeah, Katie Taylor's not a skilled fighter. I say this all the time. I'm like, there's a difference between being a great fighter and you fighting great. There's a difference between the two. Katie Taylor fights great because she has a lot of grit, physicality for a woman, and her style is conducive to fighting the people that she's fighting. But when you actually look at skill set, Katie Taylor is not skilled. X's and O's, she is not skilled.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I agree with that statement so much. I wasn't a big fan of women's boxing. I'll tell you that for free. I was not a big fan of women's boxing. And one of the biggest reasons why was because of Katie Taylor. I think her fighting style is just so sloppy. Like there's so many fights I just watch and I'm like, that is just technically not clean. And then I watch someone like Clarissa Shields, and it's not got nothing to do with race. But I just see she doesn't have the punch power. So I'll give it. She doesn't have the punch power. But just in terms of how she delivers punches, I'm like, Katie Taylor just looks so messy to me. I don't like messy boxers. As you can see, I love Dimitri Bivol. I love fighters who are clean. If you're a messy fight, I don't like it. If you're a boxer, you shouldn't come out of every fight looking like mincemeat, bro.
Let's stay on task. Let's stay on task, man. I want to ask Shane.
This is on task. This is on task.
No, I want to stay on task.
It is on task. Hear me out. I often equate Katie Taylor with Canelo because if it goes anywhere near close, you know that she's going to get the decision.
Right, Shane, I've got a question for you because we ain't got long left here. Dimitri Bivol, obviously winning that fight yesterday. Do you think we're any closer to him fighting the winner of, if it was Beterbiev? Do you think we are any closer to fighting Beterbiev in that would be an undisputed fight should he beat Joe Smith Jr.? Because that is what we want to see, isn't it? That is the fight.
Well, Bivol said after the fight that when he was asked about Canelo, he said right now he wants to become undisputed. So that's what he said. Are we any closer to that? The facts are, I feel like is as much as he may say that, I don't think it's in his hands. I think it's in Canelo's hands. I think if Canelo loses, If Canelo doesn't activate the rematch clause, I think we're going to get undisputed.
Okay. Jeff, what your thoughts on Bivol next and what you think happens for Dimitri Bivol? Because it is about him. He did win the fight. We haven't really said much about him. So, like,
I mean,
they would be Canelo, but obviously for legacy, we're looking at the undisputed at 175.
Yeah. I mean, if Canelo wants a rematch, he's gonna get the rematch. I mean, that is what it is. But if Canelo's smart, like if he's gonna be a fool, he should be a fool with all the marbles on the line. So he should let Bivol fight the winner of Joe Smith and Beterbiev. And if Bivol wins that fight, maybe go revisit that fight 2 fights down the line and you fighting for the undisputed 175-pound championship of the world. So if you're gonna go down, at least go down in flames. You know what I'm saying? Like he gets the rematch right now. It's really it's almost like the save face almost. Like he got his ass whooped. Like it is what it is. So I feel like he's gonna flirt with this rematch clause. To be honest with you, I don't think he's gonna take it. I don't think he's gonna take it. I think he's gonna put it out there. This is kind of like a PR move. He's gonna put it out there, but then they're gonna say, "Oh well, the zone want him to fight Triple G. We just gonna go with the Triple G fight." That's what's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? But for Bivol, he should just wait for Joe Smith, Beterbiev. He should go to the fight. I'm a big believer in that. Go to the fight. Now, I ain't going to understand what neither one of them saying, but if they jump in the ring and they start talking trash, I'm going to need a translator, but I would love to see it. You know, I would love to see it.
Russians fighting for undisputed in this political, that's crazy, isn't it?
I don't care. I don't care. I mean, put it on the screen. I'm watching. That's a good point.
I'll tell you one thing, Jeff. You very rarely get 2 Eastern European fighters talking trash to each other. That's just not in their culture. Whether that's right,
that's true. That's true.
You very rarely will you see that. Very rare. I think the only 2 might have been. I know Kovalev and Beterbiev don't get on, but even then, it was Kovalev that used to chat a lot of trash.
And Pulev and Klitschko.
Good shout. Yeah. Laurie, we'll let you close this one out because we're winding down to the end here. Obviously, a lot of the chat came for you earlier on today, but
I stand by every word I said. I've seen somebody in the chat putting it's horrendous. It's only because we're not uttering the viewpoints that this guy wants to hear. He wants us to massage Canelo's ego and say, "Oh, it was a great fight," and how he's unlucky. No, I'm not saying none of that. I'm sticking by what I said before. It was a cherry that went wrong. Like me, I did it. So you know what I mean? I did it. I underestimated Bivol, right? Bivol proved me wrong. And I think Canelo underestimated Bivol. But like I said, the trouble is he had to fight Bivol. I don't. Now, what I would say is about the whole Canelo situation is that I've given this a little bit of thought. Personally, I don't think it would be a good idea for Canelo to fight Bivol again. And I think people like Eddie Reynoso and they will know that. But you see, the problem Canelo has is that he's this so-called pound for pound and face of boxing. And don't forget as well, the sort of Mexican charisma, bravado thing. A lot of the Mexican fans probably won't allow him not to take the rematch. They're going to say, "You're Mexican, man. You know what I mean? You got to right that wrong, or you at least got to go in there and try and right that wrong." So even if they try to steer him away, he'll probably end up taking the Bivol fight and getting beaten again. And like I said, 2 back-to-back losses, if they're convincing like that, will probably be the end of his career at the very top.
Interesting. That reminds me of like what you just said there with Oscar Valdez, because he basically admitted last week that the fan base, basically, they thought he was scared of Shakur, and he felt like, I have to take this now because they're putting pressure on me, thinking that I'm scared of the fighter, and I have to take it.
Great point, now, because Oscar Valdez actually said that in the. He said
that, yeah.
He said, "I couldn't have people walking around Mexico saying that I was scared of Shakur Stevenson." So,
but it ain't working for Ryan Garcia because this dude ain't fighting nobody.
Well, what was interesting about Ryan Garcia is that he seemed to be quite happy that Canelo lost last night, man. By the tone of those texts. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it.
You know what I mean? So I don't know what's going on there, bro.
We'll get final thoughts.
Not only that, we haven't spoken about it tonight, Daryl, but am I right in thinking that a lot of the fans were booing Canelo in that post-fight press conference yesterday?
Yeah.
I didn't see the whole presser. I saw it there at the fight. They were booing a bit at the end. I was like, come on, man. Like, I mean, come on, that's a bit harsh, man. You're booing the guy, like, for what? It's not like he didn't put effort in there. It's not like he didn't put effort in.
Daryl, this proves what I said. These were the same fickle fans that were telling us that Canelo was unbeatable. He's the face of boxing. He's a pound for pound. And when people like myself, Jeff and Shane were saying that this guy's a ped cheat and that he's a ducker, they were cussing us out. Saying
yeah, and the truth is, bro,
like he's not black. You don't like
he embarrassed all of these Mexicans on Cinco de Mayo. They all left their house on Mexican Independence Day, and he absolutely embarrassed them. I mean, most of these dudes probably put their house and home on Canelo winning, and he lost.
Well, one thing I'm going to give Canelo credit for, I think I did say it earlier, but I think it's important that I say it again, is that I do give him credit for hanging in there when he knew he was getting his ass whipped. Yeah. I don't think he gave up. But, you know what I mean? And not only that, the guy's got a superb chin, man. I've said it all along. Canelo's chin is elite. Bivol's not the biggest light heavyweight puncher, but he cracked Canelo clean last night with a number of big shots. And Canelo never once looked like he was going to go. He didn't stagger. His knees didn't buckle or anything like that. So maybe that's something that might give him hope for the rematch. I don't know.
Francisco says here, Mexican fans boo their clubs and national team in football, so it's only fair that Canelo got some of that as well. Jeff, let me get you to close this out, man, because I want everybody in here that hasn't subscribed to his channel to subscribe to G5 Jeff TV, man. It's a very good boxing channel. You get Shane on there as well. My man BFE as well has got great content over on that channel, man. Go and check that out, guys, if you haven't already. I'm sure quite a few people in here have. But we're glad that you're in here. I just wanted to get your final thoughts before we kind of close out this chat for the day. Just
listen.
Any upcoming fights that you're looking forward to and so on.
It's always good to be on here with family. You know what I'm saying? Boxing Lowdown, Laurie. You know what I'm saying?
Big up, bro.
Bivol. I mean, Bivol went in and just he did what a bigger fighter is supposed to do. You know, the good big fighter gonna beat the good little fighter every day of the week. That's what we seen last night. Bivol should wait for unification, and Canelo, he need to go back down to 168. And if he's down at 168, it's a lot of options out there for him. But Canelo, I think he need to take a vacation. He need to take a vacation. You know what I'm saying? He need to go take a break, get himself right, and come back maybe later on. And I think, be honest with you, I think he should take the rest of the year off. I think he should take the rest of the year off. Come back next year.
Can he afford to with them 4 belts?
I'm pretty sure they can work something out. You know, little envelope money is be slid to somebody, and you know, you know what I'm saying. So I think he'll be cool, man. But you know, every chance we get to talk boxing, man, we're gonna take advantage of it, man. Big shout out to Boxing Lowdown, Laurie. You know what I'm saying? It's just a pleasure to be here, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother, man. Shane, had to get you on here today as well. You know, you're the most passionate Bivol fan I know out there, so it's had to get you on today. And listen, man,
it's so funny because Laurie's always made fun of me for being a Bivol fan, which is I've always been from the moment I've known Laurie, I've always told Laurie I'm a massive fan of Bivol, and it's funny. It's funny. At least I get my day in the shine, you know. Everybody gets their day in the shine.
Shane, but I respect Laurie because Laurie actually watched film of Bivol and came up with his own determination. In the States, people didn't even want to look at highlights of Bivol. They didn't even want to do their homework on him. So anybody that says they didn't think Bivol would win the fight and they could give me an actual logical reason why, we gotta respect that. But there's a lot of people that don't want to do their homework on guys that they don't know, and I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of these boxing fans out here.
Laurie, last word to you.
Right, yeah, I just want to first of all thank you and also Shane and Jeff for their contributions, and I want to kind of end this podcast how I started by giving Bivol his props. I freely admit I got it wrong. I underestimated him. I knew he had skills, but I didn't know if he'd be able to dog it out in the way that he did last night. So props to him for that. He's the worthy winner of that fight last night. Canelo is still a great fighter, in my opinion. However, there are question marks against the guy, man. You know what I mean? There are. And until he addresses some of those issues that we've spoken about, I'm not going to go into all of them now. Until he addresses some of that stuff, I cannot put him up there with a pantheon of the all-time greats. Sorry, I can't.
Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. It's been fire this evening. Shout out to everyone for hitting the like button, dropping the comment, sharing the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to my brother Jeff, G5 Jeff TV as well. You've got him, you've got Shane on there. You've got my man BFV on there as well. Great content on that channel. And appreciate you guys for taking the time out on this evening to join us. Jeff, we're going to take this chat elsewhere because I need to talk to you about some NBA. And I'm going to let
we can talk about that.
You guys enjoy your evening, man. But big up to everyone. And we'll catch you guys on the next video. Me and Laurie will be on the podcast on Thursday. So catch us there. And look forward to talking about the huge fight coming up this weekend between Charlo and
Castano.
Big things going on, man. So enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. And we'll catch you all very soon.
All right.